Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday. In this video, we're going to hop into the Charles Schwab picks for this year. We'll quick do a recap of last week, just do a little bit of housekeeping on that front. So, PGA Championship, unfortunately, wasn't a great week. Outrights, none of them really even came close, unfortunately. Four out of the six missed the cut. Finau was a complete no-show. Or I guess Finau did make the cut, but barely. But then fell off a map over the weekend, so he was a complete non-factor. Cantley had a chance on Saturday, and then he didn't finish great. And then obviously Brooks sort of ran away with it on Sunday. So unfortunately, didn't get the outright there. With the live. The model that I use utilizes strokes gained, and it's tough because the live doesn't use or doesn't track those statistics. So it is a little bit difficult to sort of gauge how the live guys are performing versus the PGA, where we have a massive array of data on. But credit to Brooks, I've always been a fan of his, and I give him credit because he ran out of gas at the Masters, and that was honestly the reason why I just stayed off him last week. Despite obviously his pedigree at majors, I just wanted to see it before I'd believe it that a live guy, after leaving the PGA Tour, could come out, compete with the best over 4 days. And win a major. So, that was a big breakthrough for the live. Credit to those guys. Unlike most, I don't, I'm not anti-live. I don't think it's a great product to watch or bet. But I always encourage everybody to, do what's best for them or their family. So, like I said, credit to Brooks. And it is funny because, one of the strokes gain metrics that is impossible to quantify, but seems to usually result in a lot of winners is strokes gained about to be a dad or just been a dad. You've seen it many times on the PGA Tour. John Rahm most notably last year. Brooks now. So it's something like I think when you're having a kid, it helps focus you. So that's always something interesting to keep in the back of your mind for these tournaments moving forward. But yeah, just a quick recap. So we lost 1.7 units on the outrights. Did hit the best bet with Xander in the top 20, with a caveat. Unless you bet on MGM, which is the only book, to my knowledge, that doesn't do dead heat. He finished T18, but unfortunately, he finished T18 with five other guys. So, that without getting into the weeds, qualifies for bet heat. So essentially, there's five people in the top 20 for only three positions. So you lose a portion of your stake and only get a portion of the winnings. So instead of that paying out 3 units, it only paid 0.36, which was annoying. But that's what you get when you bet on books without dead heat. The alternative is just to bet on MGM, but you get worse odds because of it. So over the long run, it really doesn't come into play that much. So I'm of the belief that just bet on the books with the best odds. Over the course of the time, you're gonna do the best that way. And then Cantlay sort of saved the tournament from being a big disaster. Notching that top 10 at plus 200. So, all in all, lost almost 6.5 units. ROI of negative 48. So not great, but, since, sharing picks publicly, we're still massively ahead. Hitting at a 30% ROI for 97 units. So looking to get back to our winning ways this week. So we'll hop right into it, over on the odds boards here. So, I need to do a better job at making these videos more concise. So what I'm going to basically do moving forward is just kind of go through the favorites, sort of give my opinion on the guys at the top of the odds board if they're not bets, and then we'll get into the picks. So obviously Scotty is the far and away favorite at 4-1. It's difficult to bet these guys at those numbers. But this is not a great field. Finau's the next favorite along with Morikawa. At 14-1. But we'll get into the model in a second. But Scotty is by far and away the best player in this field, and I think he wins this week. But there's better ways to attack it than bet him at the plus 400, especially with the pretty, I would say, high probability that he comes out Thursday, round one, not guns blazing, and there's a chance that you can get him at a better number, after round one. But I do think after he pretty much squandered last week, I mean, he was the prohibitive favorite heading into the weekend, but then he completely fell off on Saturday, and it really cost him. So I think he's going to be motivated to get back in the win column. This is an elevated event, and he's the best player in his field, hands down. So I think he probably wins, but there are other guys who have a chance. So we'll just hop over to the model here. So I ran two different queries. They're very similar. So, this week, the metrics that I'm most targeting, strokes gained to the green, fairways gained. This course, Colonial, does have much more narrow fairways than last week. So keeping it in bounds is going to be important. So I don't want guys who are spraying it. So that's what's keeping me off Spieth this week. You can see these guys at the top. A lot of these guys are ranked very well. Pretty much the top 5, 6 guys are all inside the top 25 in the majority of the categories, with the exception of like Spieth and Finau, who have been spraying it off the tee a bit. Strokes gained approach, that's obviously always going to be one of the most relevant categories in any golf tournament, this week especially because Colonial has some of the smallest greens of any course on the PGA Tour. So uh, GIR, which is greens and regulations gained, that's kind of a derivative bet of or a derivative stat rather of the strokes gained approach. So that's going to be important. And then it's another course that's it's a lot of par fours. So strokes gained par fours. Strokes gained par fours from 400 to 450, and then also proximity of approach of 150 to 175, and then BOBs birdies are better gained. Traditionally, the Charles Schwab is won, by guys who get to about minus 15 or better below par. So you're gonna absolutely have to score this week, and then bogey avoidance is correlated as well. If you're gonna score, you have to avoid mistakes as well. To accumulate a score that low over 4 rounds. So we'll quick go through the model here, and Scotty, like I said, I mean Scotty's just been on a different planet stat wise. He ranks number one, and he's number one in almost every single category. Number one in strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained approach, strokes gained par four. You know, you can see it. Birdies are better gained, greens regulation gained, bogey avoidance, right? So I mean, there's a reason why Scotty is 4-1, which is like Tiger Woods esque type of odds. He's by far and away the best player. And now the other model that I ran was this query where instead of bogey avoidance, I just went into strokes gained putting. And, as I've touched on in previous videos, using stroke gained putting isn't that predictive because, it's the most variant stat week to week. But one thing that it can do, at least visually at first, is just, showing you the guys who have been struggling with the flat stick. So, this query is run for the past 36 rounds. So as you can see, like that's been Scotty's sole weakness. So even though he's number one in this field in bogeys avoided, he's 74th in putts from 5 to 10 feet. And, that's really been his only Achilles heel. So it's not like he's getting a bunch of bogeys because he's missing these kind of putts, but, it's preventing him from scoring. He's missing a ton of these short birdie putts, and he did on Saturday as well. He finally, got hot with the putter on Sunday, but by then it was too late. And honestly, if Scotty just putted, to like the field average, he would have like 5 wins on the season. But the putter's been holding him back, so that's my only concern with him this week. Not that this course, it's bent grass greens, it's not a ton of undulation or anything like that. So I think it's not gonna putting's not going to be as big of a factor. So, the bad putters, if they can, continue to do well on the approach, it's going to greatly mitigate bad putting. But rather than bet Scotty at 4-1 from the jump, I'm going to look at him in the derivative market. I think that's the much better way to approach it. Um, and then just quick running down. So I'll go through, I guess, the bets right now. So the outrights, we're going to be on Homa, we're going to be on Fleetwood and Morikawa, for the outright wins. And you can see, here in the model, depending on, I mean, they're both very correlated. Like this is probably the slightly more predictive model because, like I said, the strokes gained putting, isn't quite as predictive, but we'll just use this one, I guess, for the purposes of this video. So, Homa's second, in this model. He's in the top 25 in almost all of the stats that we're looking at this week. Fairways gained, he's the only one that he's, not in. He's 50. It's not like he's 100 like Spieth where it becomes a huge worry, but he has been spraying his drives a little bit. And then also like the greens and regulation haven't been great. But Homa at this number, I mean, this is a guy who's won 6 times on tour. He's already won once this year already at the Farmers. So when he's sitting here at close to 30-1, in this field, there's a lot of value at that number. So I like Homa. Fleetwood's the other guy, and it was funny because I was watching Fleetwood intently on Sunday because he was one of the guys who finished after Xander, who had a chance to totally ruin that bet, and that was my biggest bet of the week. So I ended up watching Fleetwood, and he's been playing very well. Hasn't finished worse than 33 in his last 5 events. That includes 4 straight top 20s. Um, T18 last week, same as Xander at the PGA. A week before that, T5 at Quail Hollow, Wells Fargo. A week before that, T15 at the RBC Heritage in Hilton Head, and then he was T3 at the Valspar, with a chance to win. And he's been another guy who's been playing very well, like all around consistent player. He's still looking for his first win on the PGA Tour, but it's going to come soon. And this is a course that suits him well, and he's coming in great form. And you know, my worries with guys like Hovland, as much as I do like Hovland, and like he's really straightened up the short game problems that he's had. But the guys who are in contention, it. Last week, at the PGA, I just worry a little bit about like mental fatigue. Scotty, I don't worry about that as much, although I do a little bit again, which is why I'm not, betting him to win, at those crazy inflated odds. But, Scheffler is like, to me, like mentally, even though he's a completely different human, completely different personality, as far as like the mentals, like he reminds me a lot of Tiger. Just like hating to give strokes back to the field and just a fucking machine. You know, um, I don't worry too much about Scotty's mentals, but guys like Hovland, they're younger, and I just worry a little bit about them this week, having a bit of a letdown. So that's why despite Hovland being up there stat wise, I'm not going there with him. And then Morikawa, you know, Morikawa, it's crazy that he hasn't won on tour since his win at the British Open in 2021. 2-time major winner, but as you can see, like really no one's striking the ball better than he is. Outside of obviously Scotty, he's second in strokes gained approach. And he was like he's always played well at Colonial. Back during the COVID year, that was the year that he finished second to Berger when Morikawa missed like a 5-foot putt for the win. And this is a field where I think he has a very good chance to get back in the winners column this week, just because outside of Scotty, Jordan Spieth's up there, but I worry greatly about his wrist. He was going to withdraw potentially, but he could do it because you get to opt out of one elevated event. But I guess I don't know. He must feel like he's good enough to play, but I would be shocked. Based on how he's looked over the past few weeks, if he contends here. Um, so I think Morikawa. I mean, 16 to 1. He's like a little bit less than that. But if you shop around on Bet Online, he's out there at 16 to 1. Yeah, let me just quick refer back to the PGA outright calculator. So this link's in the description. I put this up at the start of every tournament. So all you have to do is click on the link and then go to File, make a copy, and then it'll create this for you. And then what you can do is just go in and then just type in your unit size, um, and you know it'll automatically um, change this column for the risk amount. And then also obviously put in the odds in your sports book here. So Morikawa, I grabbed him 16 to 1 on Bet Online, but he's like 14 to 1 on DraftKings, I think. Um, but yeah, so that's just a great tool. I know people ask me like, how do you stake out rights? That's how I do it. I do it all the way in 8 units, and then that spreadsheet makes it simple. Um, and then yeah, as far as the derivatives, uh, I'm taking Homa, Fleetwood, and Colin all to place in the top 10. And then for the top 20s, I'm taking Homa, Fleetwood, and Nick Taylor as my long shot of the week. He's plus 300 on BetOnline. And, Nick Taylor, it's not a name that many people know, but he is a two-time winner on the PGA Tour. He's been in good form. T15 at the Valero, T10 at the Valspar. And, he's a guy who ranks 12th in the model. And he's another guy that, pretty much does everything well. Doesn't really have any weaknesses. He ranks in the top 50 in everything. And, he's very excellent in, strokes gained on par fours, especially, ones that range between 400 to 450, which the majority of these do. Um, so, he's, yeah, at plus 300. I think there's great value on him. And I guess one other thing that I want to quick touch on is like, even though like these fairway gain stats are, for some of the guys we're looking at, like Fleetwood, not great, Homa, not great. Those are the guys who have been struggling with their drivers, and the way how this course is set up, there's a bunch of dog legs. So, these guys aren't going to be having to hit their driver on a lot of these holes because just the way how the hole is set up. You just need to get in position. So, those are the guys who have been struggling with their drivers more than anything, which is why the fairways gained are a little bit obscure or a little bit skewed to not really where you'd want it. But for this particular course, it's not as big of a deal. And then for the best bet of the week, I'm going to take Scotty Scheffler in the top 5. That's been one of the best bets of the year. You can get him on Bet Online plus 120. Like I said, I think Scotty's probably going to win. But taking him pre-tourney at plus 400, that's just not really my style. I mean, if I were to do that, I would have to, not bet anyone else essentially. Because I really don't like to risk more than 1 to 1.5 units, on the outright. So if we took Scotty, to win 8 units, that would be a 2 unit bet right there. So I would rather bet 3 units, on Scotty, top 5, get us some wiggle room. Don't need him to win, which despite how good he is, it's still very difficult to win on the PGA Tour. So Scott, I mean, my only concern would be the fact that he's burned out. But knowing what I know about him, I think he's pissed off over the way how he let things get away. He is back to world number one, which is kind of just a bizarre thing. But yeah, I think he's I'm not worried at all about his mentals. And, I think it's going to be like it was last week, where he's going to be in contention throughout the entire thing. And, come Sunday, he's going to be right there. And he's probably going to be like a minus 500, minus 1,000, favorite on the live line, to finish within the top five. So, in a perfect world, Scotty finishes in the top five, and home of Fleetwood or Morikawa win the thing. And, I think there's a great chance of that happening. So those are my bets for this week. Looks like we got 1.05 units invested in the outrights. And then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the derivatives, plus the best bet. So it's going to be another about, 10, uh, 10 unit risk, which is about standard for me for the PGA cards. So best of luck, guys. And let's make some money.